So, like,
So, hello
uh,
and welcome to this edition of Rethink India Masterclass. Today, destiny has made us to travel all the way to the Valley of Divine Peace, as is called Baru Sahib. It is located in the pristine settings of Shivalik, just 60 kilometers from Solan in Himachal Pradesh. Baru Sahib was founded, it was realized in the year 1956, and it is the manifestation of a spiritualized vision uh, of Sant Attar Singh, whose devotees unraveled this place over there. And uh, the entire space is a spiritual and an educational retreat. So today we have Dr. Neelam Kaur, who is the advisor, health and education of the Kalgidhar Trust, which is doing a majestic service in this region. It has a network of around 129 schools, encompassing around 6,450 villages, and the trust also runs two universities, several de-addiction centers, charitable hospitals, and it's a whole universe on its own. Madam, Dr. Kaur is a medical doctor and a MD in ophthalmology. She has dedicated her entire life to the vision and the cause of Sant Attar Singh, who wanted to equip the young people with spiritual and modern scientific education to carry forward the mission of universal brotherhood. So, welcome you, ma'am, to this edition of Rethink India Masterclass. हमारे भारतवर्ष में, I would be trying to put it both in Hindi and a bit English combined for a larger audience. हमारे भारतवर्ष में कहा गया है कि समाज के जो चार स्तंभ हैं, वो शिक्षक, चिकित्सक, सन्यासी और नारी, इन्हीं के कांधों पर टिके हुए हैं. These are the four pillars on which the entire Indian society has been flourishing. And we see that this fantastic experiment, this entire institution at Baru Sahib, has all those wonderful pillars. It's a educational, medical retreat, I would say, and inspired by an eminent spiritualist, a saint, and you being a eminent leader, a women leader from this. So what really inspired you? What really brought you to spearhead this entire movement?
thank you so much, Raghav, for such nice and kind words. When I talk about our philosophy, the mission of Kalgidhar Trust, which you have tried to put in very aptly and in a few words. So basically, this is a philosophy, which was like laid by the founding sage almost a century back, when the first school was established by him. He was not literate in educational terms, but he had a vision like the education is very important part of that vision. And for him, education was like इसको जिसको हम विद्या कहते हैं. Education is vidya, and पढ़ाई जो है वो literacy है. So he said if we have only the literacy, which is like learning of any discipline, any disciplinary studies, so that is literacy. But when you combine this with the model of spiritual rejuvenation, so it becomes education. So this thing, then it gets the name education or vidya. And as per the scriptures, religious scriptures, so vidya vichari ta paropakari. So vidya is meant only for the betterment and bettering this world. It has no other purpose, because if the human being or the child or the student is complete, then we are adding on something. So with this vision, so in 1910, around that time, he laid the first school, which was meant only for girls, in a small village in Punjab, which is, if you've heard about Patiala, Sangrur. So he belonged to that area. So the first school was initiated just for women it's almost a century back. And after that, then this movement was led by Sant Teja Singh Ji Maharaj. So he was a Harvard educated disciple, very well educated for those times. And then right now we have our Honorable Baba Iqbal Singh Ji, who is an agricultural scientist by training. And then he served in this state of Himachal Pradesh and retired as Director Agriculture. And that is after retiring in 1987, he took upon him to carry on this mission. So the first school which was initiated here in 1987 at this place, which we call a Valley of Divine Peace or Baru Sahib, in a remote district which is Sirmaur or Nahan in Himachal Pradesh. So this place had a significance. Now this place is in a peaceful, it's distantly located, remote, but like as it goes, like this place was visited and this has been a place of meditation for eons together.
Okay.
Like Pandavs, they meditated here. बहुत से पुराने yogis यहाँ पे आके meditate करते थे. Even Guru Nanak Dev Ji visited this place, Guru Gobind Singh Ji. So this place had a specific significance of meditation, and that is how.
So I would just like to share some wonderful views which are on the Baru Sahib website.
Yeah.
The pictures of this lovely place where Akal Academy is established, it is headquarters.
Yeah.
So just for our viewers that this is what this Valley of Peace looks like. So really picturesque settings in the hills and propelled by a spiritual force. And there's a wonderful description. I would really recommend our viewers to really go through and have a look at this entire genesis of Baru Sahib, which is entailed in such an elaborate and beautiful fashion as to how this entire estate came to become a wonderful spiritual retreat. So over to you, ma'am. You wanted to play a small video about...
Yeah, I wanted to play the modern building which has come up. Like this is our IB school, which we established in say about a year now, a decade or so, and it's a IB and Cambridge school. So this was much in sync with the modern pedagogy. So I'll just we are going to play this video.
Yeah, sure. Please, you can screen share from your side. We have enabled that.
Beautiful.
Lovely. What music. Majestic indeed, ma'am. It's mind-boggling and spellbounding. And what a wonderful music room we could witness with the harmoniums over there. Maybe when the Gurbani part or whatever musical renditions are going on, it's really reverberating over there. Wonderful, wonderful campus, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Very,
It's all
very,
with this.
very inspiring one.
Yeah. So we invite you to come and visit our campus. Yeah.
Certainly, ma'am. Certainly, we had been doing something called campus walks all through, but probably the travel restrictions till this lockdown fully opens up.
Yeah.
But this is a digital walkthrough we just went through. We can really feel that breeze and that tranquil completely. Ma'am, my one first question, taking this masterclass forward. You being a medical doctor, you have all the modern education and things like that. And this COVID-19 has somewhere forced the entire intelligentsia of the world, the progressive lots, about revisiting faith and tradition to a great extent. How do you visualize this coming forward?
When we talk about what happened during this pandemic and post-pandemic, like we see this almost like 1.2 billion children out of the classrooms right now across the world, which is quite a large number. And ICT revolution, like what was happening to fully bloom in India, actually it got kick-started here in education sector with this, when we started with online education all across the nation. Because India was not known for online education, but then it just made us turn to that because that happened to be our defense in these critical times. And I think if we look at our Akal academies, which are all in the rural northern India, so we have a network of 130 schools and 1,600 children. So it was a big challenge for us where, equity and fairness is always a challenge when you are teaching digitally. Now, those teachers are from the rural setup, and but by God's grace, we have always produced toppers. So wherever our children are in whichever district, maybe it's Patiala, it is Mukatsar or Jalandhar, our students have topped in their board exams. So it was a big challenge for us where in the interiors, the connectivity is an issue. They do not have their own personal laptops. But we started in a humble way in the last week of March. So this was around 24th March. So we started experimenting. We had a meeting with all our principals, and these all principals are women principals. These are all 130, very, we could say, they are the pillars of our organization, very motivated. And they took on to this call of Baba Iqbal Singh Ji that we have to carry on this education, be it whatever the challenge be. So then we started, they started making their small videos, uploading through WhatsApp, and then sharing with their neighbors if the neighbors are belonging to the economically compromised section of the society. And then we started, then step by step we kept on adding on. So we started with the teacher training. So we almost trained in the last 1.5 months, or now it's almost like 2 months. We have trained almost 4,500 teachers, and they have been trained how to lead a virtual classroom. So this training was in terms of how to teach science, how to teach. So the little experiments were performed by the teacher. Then it was taken in the home by the students. And then another dimension was added to it. Then we started that after doing this for 1.5 months, it's a time to test them or assess them, because unless we do not have some kind of assessment, so the learning, the cycle is incomplete. In the Indian traditional psyche, unless we do it, does not culminate into some kind of testing. So we developed through the Google this thing. So we developed this thing, a test, which is as they had, and they would have had in there. So it was all like covering English, math, science, social studies. It was MCQ based test, and it was for around 45,000 students participated in that. And for the language, like a little subjective creative work was given to them, so they wrote it and then uploaded and shared with their teachers, so which was of course checked by the teachers and given back to them with comments. And then lately now we just winded up a second test, which is like their term test kind of a thing, so which was attended by almost 50,000 students starting from grade 1 to grade 12. So the three part, the online teaching, the teacher training, and the assessment. So these three, that the cycle of these three we completed. And it was a big like an achievement for a small NGO like us. Like we are not that equipped so much digitally, though we have learning centers and computer labs in all our schools, and we have those all the modes of additional like learning, but then doing it at a such large scale which we never envisioned. So something which just came out, and it came out very well. But then as you know, like education, like earlier we were using this term of education and schooling and learning, they were used interchangeably. But now in the present scenario, this cannot be used interchangeably, because the learning will not be complete until and unless it is led by a human touch or a human teacher. So yeah, it can act as a value addition, but it cannot replace the classroom teaching. That challenge, we as educators have to see that, because what the value which the teacher brings in the class, by integrating everything he knows about his discipline, about the ethics, morals, the life skills, the experiential learning, which is very, very important ingredient of learning. Like whereas in Indian school system, experiential learning, which is inherent to us, like as we go by our Vedic period, the establishment of Nalanda, Texla, we were learning with experience. But in the modern terms, the experiential learning came into being of like in the early 20th century. So we started recoining that experiential learning. Now we cannot have that component of experiential learning in a classroom, which is a virtual classroom. We may have we may have the advantages, but there is a downside also to the whole process. And another very important thing to realize is that machine, like our future learning will be like driven by artificial intelligence, augmented reality, all those things will be there. But then the moot question, which I think all the educators have to answer is, can machine make a human being? So man, you cannot delegate it to the machine, the making of a man or a making of a student. You cannot delegate to that. So there has to be an interface. So maybe the future lies somewhere in having a hybrid school. Okay. Or a hybrid school where you may have some part of it once or twice a week or thrice a week. The children, what do we call it, like a blended learning. So the students have to come to the school, they have to be with the teacher, have to experience all that. So that is, I think we have to look in those terms, the homeschooling or a hybrid schooling. So it cannot be a completely digital learning.
True.
So very beautifully expressed by you, ma'am, that the human connect in education is very important, and which you so nicely expressed, that the student relates to his teacher. The guru shishya relationship is not merely something which is on a machine and getting access to it and doing the learning. What you are emphasizing here is the human connect, the guru shishya connect, which is there with real time, when he sees, observes the gestures, the whole body movement, and how the guru is conducting himself, or telling so many things which are integrated with the topic which he's learning, which may be connected and which may be related otherwise as well, which leads to integrated learning. So I think this is beautiful, and this is an aspect a great revelation, I think, which we have really discovered today.
I think Madam expanded the vision of Sant Atar Singh Ji and the distinction between literacy and Vidya, and which collectively creates education. So maybe literacy can be imparted, the skills part can be through the online part, but the Vidya, which is more experiential in terms of values, ethos, character building, it needs that samipya, the physical proximity of the educator. Madam, how this Vidya part was being imparted? What is the pedagogy within the Akal universe which really indoctrinates that Vidya? वो हमारे यहाँ कहा गया है सा विद्या या विमुक्त है. So how it was imparted? What were the modes and mechanisms which were impregnated into the literacy structures to unfurl that?
If you look at little history, like our institutions are built like a Gurukul. Like what you said, Surabhi just now said, it's a Guru and Shishya relationship. So it's basically, if we try to understand how a Gurukul was, which was there, the basic edifice of the education was built and erected on spiritual education and experiential learning. So that made the education whole and comprehensive. It was a holistic education. It was a comprehensive education. If like the scientific part of the experiential learning, like we just now said, it is something which we learn by doing and reflecting on it. So the child has to experience that, where it is not that didactic in nature, which is like, it's not learning by rote. It is learning something which you really experience. And I think if you look back at our history, like how Eklavya learned. He was an active learner. He learned because he was driven by emotions and very, very focused intensity to learn. He was not led by a facilitator, but then he learned by that experience. And when in the scientific terms, like what is experiential learning, like another beautiful example, which we usually talk in our education classes, the model of like how you ride a bicycle. When you ride a bicycle, so what you do is that like first you experience concrete experience. Like you just try, no one teaches you, but you get hold of a bicycle and try to make something out of it. So this is like concrete experience. And then once you have done that, then you go back and reflect, observe, and you have a reflective observation. Like what went wrong, what went right, and how did it fail, and how did it work. And then you try to abstract, like conceptualize, like which is abstract in form, because you don't have a bicycle right now, but in your mind you are trying with those analytical skills and with that reflection, which is based on the concrete experience which you have had. So you are trying to find the solution to it. And then there is an active experiment, like then you again try to redo it. So you are learning by doing it, reflecting on it, doing it, reflecting on it. So this form of learning, which is here in Akal Academies also, because we are in the rural setup, so we have a lot of nature around us, whether we are in village in Haryana or village in Rajasthan, or it is in Punjab. So we try to bring outdoor study programs into our curriculum.
Okay.
So where the child is learning by integrating those things. So he's experiencing that. So all those things which we call like eco clubs or nature clubs or bird watching. So all these things are built into the curriculum, where the child feels like you cannot build the emotional resilience of the child unless he feels the pain and suffering of others. So if it's an eco club, and we understand as educators what is going to be the action after this eco club, he has to understand the environment. Like that is what we call is emotional intelligence. You understand the emotions of others and your own self-awareness. And how do you react to that? How do you react to the pain and suffering? What is the action which you will take? If we have formed an eco club, we have had an adventure trip or a field trip, but it has to culminate into something, into a serious reflection. Like what is the action, which we learned, of course, in IB. They have a unit of inquiry, which the child does it, maybe a primary child, like he did an inquiry on how about money, the exchange of money. So he did whatever he had to learn in those terms of knowledge domain, what are the different kinds of currencies, this, that. And then this culminates into action. Action means like he organized a trade fair, he made something with his hands, the children, they put together an open trade fair where they sold those items to understand the transaction of money. And the money which they got, then they went into a neighborhood school which is in the deep hill, and they purchased some stationery item and distributed to those students. Now this is how the cycle gets complete. So this is experiential learning. Along with that, a component of spiritual intelligence being built in the child on the emotional resilience. He's understanding his emotions, he's understanding how to react and how to add value to the society as well. So until and unless our curriculum is, or our disciplinary study encompasses the ability of the child not only to be to build up his intellectual capabilities, but he also has to learn to be emotionally resilient and spiritually intelligent. So like what you said earlier is that how do you do? So this is one way of doing it if we do it across the curricular studies. And another way which we try to do is like we expose all our children, like you noticed that in the video, we expose them to the music. So it's like a religious music, and they all of them, it's compulsorily, it is given to everyone starting from KG till grade 12. So that's a part of it's part of their curriculum. Even our university also. So it's like a non-credit course, but we make it compulsory. So we have in our Eternal University, which we have at this place only. So there we have a Akal College of Music and Spiritualism. So where all these girls, which are taken from the rural northern India, and free education is given to them. They stay here for 6 to 8 years. So they do their bachelor's in music, master's in music, and then they learn the old forgotten musical instruments like rebab, taus. Now these instruments are not used these days. So these instruments, so we revived the old culture. So this is, and that part, that learning which we had from the university and school system, like school system came earlier, university came little after that. School was developed in 1987, and the network, say you can say that established, say about 210, and that's the time when the university came up. So then we try to put the basic denominator of value-based education or spiritual rejuvenation. So how to build this element into education. So when we started this college and the other colleges, where the basic denominator of this part is built in. If it's our Akal College of Nursing, so there we have what we call a spiritual healing. So we call that concept as a spiritual nursing. So the nurse is not only equipped like skill-wise, but she's also learned, like what you said in the beginning, that she's also a healer. So if she's doing out of her heart, so if she's doing out of her heart, so what always our Babaji, we call him Babaji fondly. So he always tells us, if you're doing with that pious intention, the healing takes place. So that concept of spiritual nursing was built up in College of Nursing. The revival of the old, our forgotten instrumental vocal music was brought in here. And in the school system, we try to teach music to all our children. So another thing which we added is that we start their day with what you call a meditation or a mindfulness or reading scriptures. So it is compulsorily for all the children. So they start their day with some kind of a prayer. So which makes them like thoughtful, it makes them mindful, soulful, peaceful. During, like all our children, whether they are in the interior pockets, but they always excel in academics. And I think that combination which we are trying to build in, like the combination of the spiritual rejuvenation and academic excellence, that brings an outstanding result. So the education, yeah, please carry on.
You have initiated experiential learning in such a majestic fashion, and you have beautifully incorporated the term spiritual intelligence. Now, for the benefit of our larger viewers, which are predominantly the other schools, would you like to elaborate further as to what specific facets of spiritual intelligence are being practiced or I would say propounded at Babu Sahib and the Akal Academy group of institutions?
Yeah. So I think that's a very good question. Like I said, we just knew the term IQ, intelligence quotient, which is like learning how to analyze and how to learn with reason and logic and have sharp memory. So everything, all our education was centered, what do you call it, literacy was centered on to build up the intellectual capabilities. Then in early around in the early 1900 or so, there it came a concept of emotional quotient. So from there is another dimension which is called the emotional quotient, which is the emotional resilience, what you call in the layman terms, but in scientific terms. So Daniel Goleman, you must have heard about him. So he brought up this concept of emotional intelligence. So he said emotional intelligence is something where you understand your emotions and how do you relate to the emotions of other people, your reactions to it. So this element of perceiving the pain and the suffering of others can only be had if the child knows about emotional quotient. If he knows, like he can, like what is happening in these days, in this era where it is a digitalization, the child is exposed to a lot of material which is not meant for him. Now, how does he decide which is good, which is bad, and how does he use that for the benefit of his knowledge? But for that, now he has to be very stable. You see the suicide which is happening. If we make our children like emotionally, we make them realize their emotions and we teach them how to handle that. So that part is building up his EQ. And then which was more scientific and more like researched, SQ has just come up now. Just like few years back, where they call it is it's a transformative intelligence. Like in IQ is something you are born with. EQ is you can learn over a period of time. You will keep on learning with your maturity, with your experience. You keep on learning. And SQ, or the spiritual quotient, is a transformative intelligence. This is your ability to transcend. So that means your ability like to learn those virtues which are ingrained in the consciousness. So there are deep virtues, the virtues of compassion, the virtues of gratitude, of thankfulness, and all these virtues are there, but then how to bring them out. So that is like with the help of, like there is a component of spiritual quotient, which is still under study. And if we look at the scientific part of it, and I'm sure Surabhi and both of you will understand, you are also trained in science. Like the man we call, like he's driven by his actions, but his actions are driven by his thoughts. And the thoughts, they come from the mind. And so the cells are governed by mind or the brain, but the brain is governed by, you say, by the mind. Like they call, there is a mind in heart. So there is mind in heart because there are nerve cells in heart. So whatever you are trying to say, there are nerve cells in heart. And so whatever things we are perceiving around us, so we can control the action of it by controlling our mind. So all these psychosomatic diseases which come up, all this anxieties, this depression which come up, if there is a belief, like a positive, what do you call a positive thinking, the positive psychology, with that we can control our mind. Now all this happens when the child is given that exposure, that there is something beyond your book, something which is these two components. So if a success of the person is not only determined by his IQ, but it is determined more, if a person had a very high IQ, but on the other side, if a person has an average IQ, but he had a good EQ, and he will be more successful because he knows how to control his emotion. And if he has a spiritual intelligence, then of course that is an ultimate thing. So in our school system, we try to integrate, like starting with the morning prayer, which is an integral part. Now what happened, like I was telling you, this 45,000 children and then all these 4,000 teachers and 130 our principals. Now we started our day online also with meditation. Okay. So we encouraged our students that look at the suffering and the pain of the humanity right now. You may be only looking at your family, but look at something people in your neighborhood, look in your village, look in people around you. You cannot do anything for them, but only if you pray for them, what you call as an intercessory pray. You pray not for yourself, but you pray for the benefit of others. So what we Guru Nanak's philosophy, Sarbat da Pala, you pray for the peace for all, for spiritual brotherhood. So you will be surprised that all the children, along with their family, so everyone was praying at least for an hour a day, and they're still doing it like we are doing. So there is a peace for everyone across the globe, and they have recited so many prayers, and they have given such beautiful the way they are explained, because a 5-year-old, he explains in a different way. I have made a call to the God, and that I have connected with him, and I'm trying to tell him that India is a poor nation, so be kind to it. So America and UK maybe can face this pandemic, but India is really not equipped. So he doesn't understand, but understand that India is not a very rich nation. So India needs us with more of faith healing and with prayers. Maybe the misery and the pain and the suffering of others is decreased. So this learning, this is also a profound learning in this time when we got all of them together. Like all of them were trying to say, we are going to pray, and we are going to pray not only for ourselves, but we are going to pray for others. So all this thing, so that's the, I think, clarion call which I give it to all the educators, that bring this component in the education, because this education becomes complete. If we're only educating the mind, it is incomplete unless we do not educate the heart or the soul of a student. So for that, I think this component has to be built on.
Maybe they have started touching upon, even in the modern scientific parlance, they're talking about the growth mindset, where it really transcends and transforms a person's IQ and EQ to a different dimension. And communion with the self, this is where our entire Indian thought process starts from, the concept of self. I think this masterclass can really go on and on. It is Ananto Brahma Jigyasa. It's infinite. And madam, being a doctor of medicine, of ophthalmology, दृष्टि जो कहते हैं, आज आपने हमारी दृष्टि विभिन्न विषयों पर इतनी स्पष्ट कर दी है. You have expanded and cleansed it and cleared it in such a profound manner, ma'am. The way you have professed the whole, I would say, the universe of experiential learning, it's really, I think, all our viewers would be really helped by this great wisdom, and really they will incorporate a lot of those avenues out there. And the beautiful way with which music has been incorporated as a way of expanding the self, the spiritual intelligence, and I am seeing a beautiful interplay between higher education and the school education, the rural education spread across Haryana, Punjab, Rajasthan, Himachal, the entire northern India belt. This is really profound. It's a grand experiment. Not just an experiment, it's a light which is being shown to the whole country as a whole. Last but not least, experiential learning is also comes from emulating your masters, as we say, acharyas, the way they carry themselves. So in what ways? Because it's a spiritualized institution, but having a vision with the scientific breakthroughs as well. I'm seeing it. It has an extremely progressive outlook, and you have an IB curriculum in place where you are having meditation and prayers over there. So how this synergy, how this juxtaposition of things are being carried out by the 4,000 odd teachers and the 130 odd principals you talked about, because these are the acharyas who are leading and I would say leading the students at large and their families.
Yeah, another good question, because as you said, until unless the teachers, those who are going to lead, like we taught them how to lead a virtual classroom, if you do not teach them how to train the student to think how to be emotionally resilient or spiritually intelligent, so they need to be taught first. So our training is integral part of our employment, our HR activity. So before we before we place them in our rural academies, so it's mandatory for them to have like 6 weeks to say about a 12 weeks an orientation program. which is a residential program. So they have to come to the head office, which is like this place in Baru Sahib. So they come here, spend, and then they try to understand and see what's happening here. Like when we explain, because until unless they, like we said, until unless they do not experience, even if they do not learn anything here, just being here and understanding like simple living and high thinking. But for that, they have to come and stay here. Look at the children. The children are all dressed in kurta pajama. They are all tying the star. So which is again there's a very beautiful logic behind it. Like they have to be in that form when they're learning. It's a uniform is not a modern uniform. It's the uniform which was like maybe in those Gurukul times. So that kind of a uniform. So these kinds of experience. So they also take part in the meditation. So they also learn the spiritual values, how to incorporate them through the extracurricular activities, like through the integration into the disciplinary subjects. How do we bring those two together? So we teach them in their life skills. We also teach them through the curricular studies. We also teach them on like through the extracurricular activities, how to weave all those things in your knowing. So that actually, and then they are always motivated and inspired in a way which is regular refresher courses and a lot of like trainings keep on happening, because we are well aware of the fact, because we are into the deep rural pockets. So until unless we are not updated of what's happening in the latest the pedagogical advancement which is happening, so we keep on adding these two these two dimensions, and done beautifully. Now recently we have partnered with Yale, this thing, Center of Emotional Learning, so where it's a learning social emotional learning, which is so important, which happens only from 0 to 6 years of life. So social emotional learning through these stories. So they say like this was given by somebody called an activist, social activist and actor in UK, Leslie Odwin, when she made a film on what happened in India, that rape which happened in Delhi, and she made that film like that. What was her like, which is close, which resonates with what we do. Like when she was interviewing those rapists, so they did not have any kind of remorse on what happened. They did not have. So the learning in which was that the education was incomplete. Their school dropouts are very many, and even if they were in school till 10th or 12th, this dimension of understanding the pain of others, the social emotional learning, was not built into their teaching. So based on that, it was then we have now started doing like we started incorporating this social emotional learning from in our kindergarten, across our kindergarten children. So we are teaching them this component, like simple things like a mood meter, kindness tree. Like these are the things which are being done in the classrooms. Like you understand your mood, how you bring kindness tree, these little things which they learn through stories. So which is, as per the psychologists say, that the foundation, 70-80% of work is done by the child is 6 years. So you have to expose him to all these things early childhood. And then by primary is another. So that is why we took this IB also, the primary years program, because we wanted to build all these things before the child gets into the puberty and is then driven into all those fashion and media and glare and the glamour of the world.
So here we had Dr. Neelam Kaur from the Valley of Divine Peace, and as viewers, this 1 hour long interaction, this masterclass, we have unveiled as to what constitutes progressiveness with peace from the Divine Valley of Baru Sahib. This masterclass, as I said earlier, is never ending. The kind of nuggets of wisdom we have got from Madam Kaur is really phenomenal. It's completely experiential, because this is what is being practiced across the 130 odd schools and the headquarters in Baru Sahib. I invite you all, once this lockdown opens up, to have a visit to Baru Sahib.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Pristine settings. This is really a edu destination par excellence of this country, and which is inspired by the spiritual force of Sant Attar Singh, because that is the kind of vision which is collecting this entire community together and really making them progress towards higher and higher dimensions of human excellence, anchored in spiritual intelligence, emotional intelligence, and obviously the intellectual quotient which is required in modern day today. Thanks a lot, madam, for being with us and taking out time
Thank you
from
so
your
much.
extremely busy schedule.
Thank you.
This masterclass would be really helpful for one and all who would be watching it out there. Thank you very much, and our pranams to these spiritual settings of
Thank
Badu
you so
Sahib.
much. And last line which I would end with is like you have to close your eyes to see inside. Okay.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.